Now you done put his camera in front of the your phone all in front of his camera.
We'll figure it out eventually.
It's a season of giving and sharing.
Is it even
Amen.
on? Hello.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hello.
This little yeah. Okay. I said it.
This little light of
mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Everywhere.
Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
This little light.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Good evening and welcome to a new song.
That was
Thank you for joining us. As we see, we were setting up other cameras as we were getting started, but we're here. We welcome you into the space, into the conversation. So this week, we have with us the wonderful, and I take this word from drag queen, not from drag queens, from Dreamgirls, the Indefatigable.
Yes.
Indefatigable.
Yes, the Indefatigable.
Indefatigable.
Darell, J. Hunt, how are you?
I'm
How you doing?
indefatigable. I was just
Indefatigable.
I've made it through the week. I'm just, glad to be alive, glad to be in the company of good people. Or peoples.
Peoples.
As
Yes.
I like to say.
Miss Ashley, how are you?
I am. Hello.
It's still here.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm a little vocally fatigued because I've done things to myself and planned things that I probably should not have. But I'm a little vocally fatigued, but I'm here with my brother.
Yeah, so you were actually my connection to Darell. That's how that's how we first met last year doing Gang Beef and Tracy. Tracy, yes.
Tracy.
So if you haven't
Come
watched last year's Holiday Jam, which we will be doing again on the 21st.
Do it.
So if you haven't watched it, go back and watch last year's. Find the Ashley Jenkins Christmas show. It's an hour and a half of
Jenkins.
Of foolishness. And nice,
And Christmas
some nice
music.
singing, but
Lots
foolishness.
of nice singing.
Now,
Yeah.
you two,
Lots
did you
of
spell Jenkins with an
wonderful
E or an A? Because I spell it Jenkins. It's in my
You
phone.
spell it
as-
Jenkins or Jenkins?
No, he pronounces it Jenkins.
And it's in my phone as Jenkins.
It really is. I left my charger one time at our friend's house, and he was there, and I was like, please don't let me forget to get it. This fool puts some tape on it and writes Jenkins on it. Jankins. So
That's how we say it where I'm from.
Yes.
This is where we.
anyway.
So as you can tell, everybody, they're very close.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how you know each other, how this relationship started, how.
Well, one night she got to fighting.
And so it began.
And she needed 15% of her bill. And I went down there and got it. No.
I don't remember the moment we met. I don't remember.
I want to say, but I don't know if it was Toshi's or if it was Herbo.
I feel like actually it was even before that, because somehow we were Facebook friends before then. I have no clue. But maybe the reintroduction was at Herbo.
Yes.
Which was this place where there was
music
and open mic and thing. And so then we met there and had a bunch of mutual friends and stuff. And then found out later that we actually were at North Carolina A&T at the same time, but didn't know that we were there at the same time.
Because she left Aggieland.
I did. And I'm not
she went
upset about it.
She went on somewhere else. So I am blue and gold.
I don't have no problems. No qualms. Nothing about it.
How are we defining no?
Hear what I say? Okay?
She said no.
Aggie pride, and I'm going to say it. And I wish somebody would.
She will fight you.
I will. But yeah, that's that. And then we just fell in love, and we are fools by nature. And like our group of friends, everybody's like crazy, but it's always us, one or the other or both, doing some sort of physical.
We're just never quiet.
Vocal. Yeah.
Which is why it was so perfect last year to have you both do the King Beef Tracy. So tell me a little bit. So I know that where that comes from, but tell us a little bit about where that came from and what that was a reference to.
We both love In Living Color, and for those of you who don't know, it was a very pivotal sketch comedy show created by the Wayans brothers. And one of the sketches on there was so brilliantly performed. It was Cephas and Reese, which was performed by Kim Wayans and David Allen Greer. And they, and you're not really sure whether they were husband and wife or brother and sister.
Yeah, that was
very, very muddy. And we discovered that we both love them.
Get off the Lord's bus if you ain't got correct change.
Yes. And so they part of their thing was like they had these albums, like these Christmas albums. They were a singing group.
Yes.
A duo, and they would sing songs that made no sense.
And they would be songs that reminded you of a genre or reminded you of a song, or it was just complete satire and like just parody of like classic like holiday songs. And what I love about Kim Wayans was that during that period she was one of very few black women that were writing for TV.
Yep.
Because they wrote those sketches themselves, and she was writing, like she created Bonita Betrayal and all those other characters. So because
was Deborah Wilson writing, or was she just Deborah Wilson was on Mad TV?
No, this is I don't. Well, if she was, I don't know. But I just know because they did a reunion during the Tribeca Film Festival a few years back.
Okay.
And it was Kim, Damon, Tommy Davidson, and somebody else. And she talked about she didn't realize she was getting those credits. So it's just something that just us being black.
Yeah.
She is kind of Southern because she's from D.C. It's below the Mason Dixon. I'm actually Southern because I'm from North Carolina. But for me, I grew up with Cephas and Reese singing down to the church at the quartet concert. There were women in my church that would take over a solo from the back row of the church and just out squall the mic and the organ and the Leslie and all the amplification. So I grew up with those people, and they were iconic to me being a singer and a storyteller. And they're, what I also love is that, I don't know about Kim, but David actually sings.
Oh yeah.
Because he was
in Porgy and Bess, and he was in
he was actually in Dreamgirls with Loretta Devine and all them.
What?
Yeah, because they were talking about Carmichael's show, and she was being interviewed, and she said, "Well, we met on Dreamgirls, so we've been
David.
So yeah, that and she, when you asked her about it, she was like, oh, okay. And she called me. She was like, so I'm doing this thing, and they want us to do something. I was like, absolutely. So, of course, we couldn't use their name because of rights and stuff. Yeah. And we also love Martin.
Yes, God.
So Martin did this character called King Beef. And Gina and Pamela would be like, go King Beef, go King Beef. And he had this big suit with the big hairy chest and this big perm. And so I said, versus Cephas and Reese, we're going to be King Beef and Tracy.
Yeah,
because I grew up and went to school with girls named Tracy, and they was always wide open all the way live. So that was how we put our character
With fan ponytails and
yes
slick
that,
backs.
that never failed during the fight
Never.
from the beginning to
Those,
the end.
you
that thing
knew that
was-
they were the best fight. Only the best fighters had a fan ponytail.
yes, and Newport's in the crush.
Oh God. So that is how that came to be, and we got up there, and I remember actually before Darell got there that day, and the crew, you were like, so what's gonna happen during this thing? And I was like, yeah, and he's gonna come out, and then something, we don't really know what we're gonna say. We're just gonna like do stuff, and it's gonna be like and then we did it, and that's what it's gonna be. And I remember the crew being like, okay.
I mean, because I got it because I knew what it was because I had seen it in Living Color. I mean, because it was essentially the Black SNL.
Yeah.
And which we need another.
Yes,
At some
we do.
point, you
Yes,
know,
we do.
I think we cast member 1 and 2, but you know,
You know.
anyways, just put that out into the universe.
I mean, I'm here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was definitely a lot of like, okay, don't quite know how this gonna go, but
Yeah.
okay.
And
Yeah.
then it happened, and it was magical. My daughter has memorized it. My husband
The
watched,
whole-
the whole thing. She has memorized the whole thing.
And what I like was some of the crew members were like giggling. You
Oh,
could
yeah,
hear
because
when you
it was
play it.
stifled because
Yes.
it
Well,
was,
then you probably because also Kathy, Pastor Kathy, who's going to be
oh,
our
right, because
guest
she
on
was
the
up
18th.
there. Oh, okay.
She's going to be here on the
Yay.
18th. She was up in the balcony.
Right,
for
right,
this,
right.
So she was cackling.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. That was a fun time. And
good.
it was probably the first time in a long time that I felt that free on stage, and I was just over the moon that I had my brother there to like solidify I felt calm. He
Yeah.
calmed all of my nerves, and he was we're gonna go out here and just be us.
And we
like
could
how we are in the house.
and we could holler.
Yeah.
Because we try to be so placed and so cute and so appropriate.
Yeah.
But just holler.
That's
was
this is
good.
one of the things I want to like work on because and it's interesting because I've talked to specifically with other like Black creatives and Black artists of this trying to create spaces that are diverse, but where people don't feel like they're just being a loud Black person or just because there's an
Yeah.
aversion to not be the loud Black person doing the Black person thing all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But then I feel like people tap down so low that I'm like, but give them Jesus, let them have all of it.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
like finding that line between when does it feel like performing, and when does it feel genuine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for me, I've been in New York 9 years, and a lot of the Black artists that I've met that have not been educated or that didn't train in spaces that affirmed who they were, they walk that line rather nervously.
Yeah.
85% of my educators from kindergarten to graduating college were Black. So I didn't have to hone my craft in art that was made by people outside of like the centrality of my race and who I was. I like how Toni Morrison talks about how she started to read like African writers like Chinua Achebe, and she said they got to write from the centrality of their race without the voice of oppression over their ear.
Mm.
So I have no problem at all being loud and Black. One of my phrases that I coined and that I actually own is "You cannot do Black people." That's just my pride and my celebration, and I take that wherever I go. Now, am I going to go somewhere and have to sing like the prayer of St. Francis? I'm not gonna sing that like Bessie Smith. I'm not gonna. I will sing according to the genre, but you always understand who I am as like African American person. Like, and some people have such a hard time with balancing that based upon where they find themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just me.
I think outside of my husband, because for those of you out there who know my husband, you know that my husband does not care at all about respectability.
No,
and
he doesn't.
at all.
He doesn't.
And
That's why we love him.
only Darell is second to him in people in my life who have taught me. And when I am in other spaces where I am clearly the only one or one of two that look like me or that act like me, when I feel myself feeling like I need to adjust or whatever, there two people that I think about in my mind, that are like, what? No. I'm about to sit here and like be myself. I'm not going to code switch. I don't have to do that. It's, Darell and Anthony.
I just tell people, when I code switch, I just like use correct grammar.
Right.
Like my cadence, the pitch, nothing about that changes. I just use correct grammar. Or because I'm Southern, and when I get talking real fast and I move around the city and stuff like that, I will slow down and be more articulate, so people in stores will know what I'm saying. Because Northern people, like, I'll say something, they'll be like, "What did you say?" I'm like, "Surely I'm speaking English," but I am from North Carolina, NORF.
Yeah.
So if I'm speaking, like, depending on where I am, I will say North Carolina, so people can get it. But for the majority of the time, this is what y'all get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting too, and I think it's because I've also, or at least I often feel that I don't have a problem with that. Granted, on the scale of like blackness, I also have never been the blackest person. In terms of like even my interest in even musical theater, I would say even like when I write musical theater stuff, I wouldn't even say it's the blackest side. It lives in a kind of gray area of, I don't know what this is, or not know what it is, but it's, like I equally value the movies that I watched growing up and the music from the 40s and the 50s as much as my black stuff. And so I think also for me, it's never been, like I've also been enough on the side where I also just never got the looks. I never got but not in the same way that some people do.
And see, what for me, when I first started training, like high school, like formally, with spirituals, choral, some classical music, I was exposed to black composers first. Like the first composer I remember learning about was Moses Hogan. And singing
Hogan.
Elijah Rock was like,
Elijah.
Oh, yeah. So that was amazing. And also paying attention to different voices and stuff. Like my my teacher, he's now Dr. Jimmy Cheek, we would listen to different vocal ensembles, and we could listen to the weight of the voice, and the time we were like, they're white. That's a black ensemble. They're probably mixed. And he would then show us the groups. So we paid attention to how people sounded. We paid attention to like different composers and stuff, but we were always aware that there was not one black sound, because Kathleen Battle is amazing. So is Aretha.
Carolyn Blackwell.
Because human beings can make all these different sounds. They can make all these different types of music. Like when I first learned about like U.B. Blake and Noble Sissle and Fats Waller and all that didn't sound like the church where I came from. So for me, as far as like a black sound, for me, as long as it's informed by the fact that you know who you are and like the history of like where your people come from, I think I'm fine with that.
Because that's what I was going to let you finish, but that is what I would offer to you when you think about that. It is informed by your experience as a black person, and by default is the black experience, is your black experience, which is not singular. Just like on the opposite end of the spectrum, that is not the singular black experience. It's all the black sound because it's coming from black people.
And I think too that I fall into a bit of, this is a larger conversation, but I think some of it stems too from people becoming uncomfortable because of also on the opposite side, their blackness not being black enough.
Right, and we gotta delve into that as well.
And one of the things, like for instance, like I was having a conversation about Spike Lee and about watching his movies, and I've watched a few, but it's one of the things where it's like I've never really connected to it, and also he wasn't making movies for people like me. He was not making. He didn't care about no gay black folks really. In that same way.
And I tell people the only images that I had growing up were men on films. Antoine and Blaine. So that was parody. There was satire. They were made a joke of, and so those names became a pejorative growing up. But then a movie called Mannequin came out, and Meshack Taylor played Hollywood.
He sure did with the glasses.
He was not apologetic.
Mm-mm.
He was not ashamed of being flamboyant. He was not ashamed of being over the top, and he would cover up his pink Cadillac convertible, and he was a professional. He worked in the store. So I was like, oh my gosh, he's not a derelict. He's not what he's none of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And when he passed, I was like, wow, he was my first connection to seeing somebody like me that wasn't a stereotype. And I always, a friend of mine, his name is Jamal Barnes. He's an amazing dancer. He was with Bill T. Jones for years. And he talked about being black. He said, when I got to New York dancing, he said, black New Yorkers, many transplants, many come from the South and other areas. He said, I grew up in Arizona and I'm Buddhist. He said, so I didn't fit in with the church folk. And so he said, I didn't fit in. And I said, thank you for explaining it, because I had not thought about it, because I grew up Pentecostal. I grew up in the South. You can't be different. You can't be loud. You can't sing pretty, because they tell you done lost your fire. You don't love the Lord if you ain't hollering. Yes.
And see, this thing, I am the complete opposite. I was actually talking with somebody the other day. I was like, I would feel more comfortable conducting. Well, I use Sondheim because he just passed. May he rest in peace. But I would feel comfortable conducting a Sondheim show I had never seen or heard before on Broadway before sitting down in a black church and having to play like a real black church.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Because I do musicals. I don't do.
Yeah.
Right, and for me, being exposed to different things, like I grew up Pentecostal, but with school and stuff, we would have to sing at different places. So we would have to sing at Catholic churches. So I got to see like what Mass was like, and communion. Everybody, diving in that one goblet. And I was like, that is their faith. I said, but we just gonna backwash it for the Lord, and like the first time I went to like AME churches and black churches and they turned and all things come of thee, oh Lord, and of that on have we given thee. It was so weird. I was like, why are we turning to this cross and singing after the offering? So there is like
why is Jesus still
right
there? He's risen.
For me, there is no one black sound. There's no one like sound for anything to be judged by. When we did, when I was a part of the concert that Titus Purchase did at Carnegie last year before everything went down.
Oh yeah.
We at Company, lots of company. We did the electric slide. Company, pop it up. We were in rehearsal and I started like doing this thing. He was like, "No, let's do that." So a friend of mine, he's like a little nephew of mine. They were having the Sondheim tribute, and he called me. He was upset that there weren't more black people performing. It was like on YouTube because it was COVID, it was virtual. And I said, I get it, you desire more visibility. I said, but I like to let people's art speak for who they were. From West Side Story to the present. His art has been amazing, but he never wrote it for us. And I said,
and rightfully so. He doesn't know anything about our perspective.
Right. And so I told him, it's perfectly fine to appreciate that his art was amazing. The problem is when you devalue yourself because you're not allowed to do it or because someone doesn't invite you to do it. It's great art. But if, like my idea about certain classical pieces of art, theater, stuff like that, I don't care if I never make a dime doing certain works. I try the validity of my art by the discipline that I trained under. Is the note centered?
Yeah.
Is it flat? Is it sharp? Like in whatever genre, whoever wrote it, you got to be in the right key.
Yeah.
You got to be on pitch.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, please, if you could. And I also love watching Denise Graves do a master class. Was it at Boston University?
She went to my alma mater.
I was watching a master class, and she told the student, she said, I don't care who you are. She said, don't be concerned about singing when you're at your best voice. She said, I'm in my best voice most of the time when I'm at home taking clothes out the washer and putting them in the dryer. She said, I could do a full. She said, work on singing at your like good voice, like the best at your good voice. And I was also watching Riri Grist do a masterclass, and she told the young lady she was coaching, she said, "You're just a singer. You're not a robot. You're not a machine." She said, "So we're going to finish. We'll pick it up later." The young girl was really gung-ho. She wanted to keep going, and she probably would have damaged herself if she a coaching for 2 hours. You are singing for 2 hours. So I look at it as long as the work is good.
Yeah.
And as long as you understand that you want to be edified in the work, and you want the people that are taking it in to be edified, I think it's perfectly fine. And if you cover your bases, you know who you are, you understand things, I think you'll be good.
When you just have to do the best you can give at that moment. Sometimes you can only give so much. And because I was listening, actually something we did on here when Man was here, I was singing. Who was the you probably don't remember? Oh Lord, hear my prayer. And I went back and listened, and I was like, oh, that note is off in that. But she was like, oh no, it was good. And it's like it might not be good for you, but it might be touching somebody else or saving somebody else.
Yeah. I talk about Billie Holiday's last album, Lady in Satin. Functionally, her voice was gone. I'm a fool to love you. I'm a fool to love. But it's the best storytelling, like literally of her, like entire career. To me,
and there's something to be said about when you don't have something else, being able to find.
Yeah.
Is My Man on that album?
No. I'll send it to you. And also they have like the outtakes of where she was fighting. She was like, no good. I can't hear the tune. I can't. Like, I know it front to back. She was struggling and fighting to keep it together, but she used what she had. That's why I like listening to artists that sang for years. Like I love listening to young Shirley Horn, and then I love listening to old Shirley Horn, where she would just be at the piano and she would just sing down in the mic. It's kind of like she was just by herself, audience full of people, and she would just sing down in the mic. So,
well, there's something beautiful I think that happens. Like even if you look at like Bach was known for earlier in his earlier writings, there was a lot of ornamentation and a lot of notes, but later in his career, he started only writing the notes that were necessary, and the music got more pared back and more pared back and more pared back.
And you know that has a lot to do with learning, with age, with learning that you don't need to prove yourself, but to yourself. There's no one else that you need to. You don't have to be performative in creating your art, if that makes any sense.
The first step in the creation should be checking off the box that you're happy with it.
Yeah.
And also understand what's the purpose. Why am I doing this? In my acting department, one of our mantras was love the arts, not yourself in the arts. And when I was a young singer, I was probably in 7th grade, and rest her soul, Miss Laura Hodge, she was playing, and I just was not blending with the other tenors. I just did not care about. I was just singing. I loved my voice, and she started singing. She said, "Darell, this is not a solo." So whatever she started, she was like, "This is you need to blend." I mean, like, I was like,
I definitely had my technique teacher, Samuel L.E. Bonds, in high school, and he said, "You love the sound of your voice too much." And I was like, oh.
Not called all the way out.
Read.
All the way out.
Yes. I said, no, I don't. He said, yes, you do. Because you care too much when you make mistakes. Rather than like learning and fixing and practicing, rehearsing to be better, you care too much when you make a mistake. And I was like,
yeah, and as you get older, you be like, "Ooh, child, I didn't make that."
yeah.
And you just keep on going.
Yes, yes.
And I love watching, speaking of loving your own voice, I don't think she loved her voice too much. She just loved her own voice. Landine Price, in one of her interviews, she said, you have to love what you have to give to the world.
Yes.
You have to love it. You can't stand up there, okay, maybe I'm going to sing. Like I grew up in church and people would get up and say, I'm singing this song. y'all pray for me. The devil, devil don't,
Come
devil
up with
don't
all
want me
these
to. You know, I'm
excuses
like,
beforehand.
no,
Sing a song.
no, it's not the devil. Drop the key.
Yeah, and stop
It's not
drinking
the devil.
whiskey.
We blame too many things
Stop
on God
drinking
and the
whiskey.
devil.
And,
No,
and,
see, if I was God, I'd be like, I ain't talking to y'all no more because y'all y'all sit down somewhere.
yeah,
Right.
leave the whiskey alone.
The devil did not do
The
it.
devil
You did
didn't
that.
do it.
And I think
Or-
that's part of the problem with the world is we need to stop blaming things on the devil and own up to what we are doing because that's
Yeah.
until then it's not going to get fixed.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines in A Raising the Sun, I'm going to be paraphrasing, is when Benita said, you know, just talking about we blame things on the God and God and the devil. Benita said, you know, God gets credit for so many things that are just part of the stubborn efforts of man. Like I grew up with people, you know, I grew up around older people, and the mothers would be like, in the grocery store, Lord, tell me what to buy. Should I get the Scott tissue or the Charmin? I want the Lord to tell me everything. Mother.
Well, you know you just going to go for the one that's
Yes,
cheapest.
yes. Or do you need the 1 ply or the 2 ply? Do you need a
Right.
6 pack or
What
8
do you have the
pack?
coupon
Is the
for?
grandbaby right? Are the grandbabies coming this weekend? So you need more. Like I used to be like, do y'all have to ask the Lord?
Everything. Like
Y'all
God,
can't do
like
that by yourself?
you. All you're gonna do is wipe your behind.
Yeah, and it's from
God's
it's,
like, I don't care. I have bigger things to be doing.
yes, it's
Thank
and
you.
it's from a place of like understanding like. You said Bachman's earlier is all of the embellishment, all the stuff because he could.
Yeah.
But what was effective? Like
Yeah.
like for me, like I had a big conversation one time with my mom about saying grace, like over our food. And I just started eating and she said, you ain't gonna say your grace? I said, Mom.
People think we're real
Like-
offended.
Like I was like, is God gonna do something to the crackers?
Yeah.
If I was God gonna do something if I don't say grace? Father, we thank you right now for the food.
That's your mother.
Yes, for
She
a pack
said-
of, for a pack of crackers, a Snickers,
Yeah.
some gummy bears.
Because let me
Lord, cover this in the blood of Jesus.
listen, because I'm gonna tell you what. There is no nutrition in that. So whatever you're praying and asking God to, thank you for the nourishment. There's no
As if it's
nourishment.
going to change.
Yeah, and for me, just how I practically deal with like everyday life, like understanding why I'm doing things, understanding the consequences of my actions, and you know, just being aware of certain things, the things that don't make sense. Why did I do that? Like some of my family members would pray, dear Lord, make this food nourishing and non-fattening to our bodies. And one day
Now when you're eating ham hocks and
It's like,
chitlins
then
and
change what's on your
yeah,
plate.
and one day I said, it's a layer of butter on everything on this table. Is God going to dissolve the calorie on the way down your esophagus?
it's so
Or is God going to give you a few more
ridiculous.
enzymes to
It's
break it down?
So ridiculous. And I'm gonna tell you when that questioning really comes into play, like into high gear, is when you become a parent. Because there are things that we teach August or that will reprimand her for or begin to reprimand her and be like, wait, but why don't I like this? Or why is this offensive for her as a child to do? Like, I'll give you an example. We were trying to teach her the difference between lying and telling a joke and telling a story or what.
That's important.
And it's been an ongoing thing. And one day I said something that was kind of jokey, and she was like, "Mommy, you lied." When I was if ever I said, "Mommy, you're lying," or "You're a liar," or like, it was so forbidden. I would never even joke
Right.
about
You had
that.
to say you told a story.
You told a story. And so I called my mom and one of my best friends, and I text them first, and I said, "So why is it bad?" Now, in that moment, I was not lying, but it got me to thinking. And I was like, now, why is it bad if a child calls an adult a liar if the adult is lying? Why is that wrong for them to simply point out a fact that is in front of them? Why is that offensive? And so my best friend was like, because I said it is. It was
Ego.
just
Ego.
She was just like, I mean, because that's what it is. And I'm trying to think of what my mom said. She said, I just feel like calling someone a liar or saying someone is lying is harsh, because that is a comment on their character versus saying like you are a liar versus saying you lied about something. Like there's a difference. And so for her, she was like, I never even really said to you, like, why are you lying? Why? Because I never wanted you to get in your mind like, oh, that's a part of who I am. Yeah. So for her, the concept of calling someone a liar, which that's what made it disrespectful for a child to do it. And I thought that was really interesting. But it's a part of one of those things. Don't forget what you're going to say. That's one of those things where, as a parent, it's like, wait, why am I upset about that? Why should I be upset about this? Go ahead. What you going?
Because the one thing that I understood when I was growing up, you ate what was prepared. I did not grow up wealthy. I'm not wealthy now. I work hard for my coins. I work real hard to give me a good piece of salmon down at the Whole Foods.
You work hard for the money.
Yeah, and so my mother would say, "You better eat something. We not wasting enough." It was, I'm tired. I have worked hard to provide for you, and you're gonna eat this because I'm not wasting. That wasn't the vocabulary. It was just you better, which was a result of oppression, which is a result of some type of lack. Yeah. And a lot of issues with child and parent and rearing that I have read about and observed. I have friends that are therapists. It is just ego. And I've often said, if we treat children like little developing humans who often have more more feelings than they have vocabulary, we will understand. Yep. And if you said something that was a lie, you was lying.
Right.
Well, and that's part of the problem now in America. Folks can't call out folks and tell them they lying.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest problems.
I will gladly, I don't care. I will gladly be like, nah, you lied.
Yeah.
Now we can talk about. I don't want you to run up in the forest fire, but I want you to know that's a lie.
I don't want you to.
I don't want you to meet your end, but that was a lie.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it.
Yeah.
And move forward. And some people are like, well, I'm just not confrontational. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because if they shortchange you at the grocery store, you, ma'am, you owe me 38 cents. But when it comes to other things, I just don't want to be confrontational. And if we could just think a bit more critically, and if we could just learn a little bit more about mankind from a place of like biology and how our brains work, and if we could just dig deep to the root of what we believe, why we believe it. I talk to people all the time who have an issue with me and my truth and who I am as a black gay man, stuff like that. I tell them, do you know what you believe and why you believe it?
And the answer is no.
Right. Or are you just believing? Is your faith system basically as strong as the oldest person in your family or the oldest person that you remember? I got people, my grandma would be so disappointed in me. I need to start going to church. Your grandma don't care if going to church, if you ain't going to listen to none of that stuff and do no better. Like when you leave the church, you're going to go back to being like defunct and stuff.
We've been doing that here. What's the point of doing all the marching in and lighting the candle and saying this litany and doing this and doing that if you don't know God?
Yeah. Because at the end, did you feed the hungry?
Right.
And clothe the naked? I remember one time we were witnessing, passing out tracts. Oh, God can do it. Jesus saves. Come on. This man was like, do y'all have a sandwich?
Oh,
I am hungry.
Yeah.
He said, I can't hear anything that you're saying because I am hungry.
Yeah.
There's
my systems are shutting down.
Yeah, I don't understand. Just like when they was going to get Lazarus up out the ground. They said, now we got to get there within 3 days. She said, I got to do this. He said, this is for the benefit of them who don't believe. Because had they not seen the work, there would have been no miracle. There would have been nothing, as it's written in the story. If you just take it as a story, had there been no work, what would they have believed in?
Yeah.
So
But there are people, I will say, there are some people who would be perfectly fine with their entire family going to church every single Sunday, and whatever you do out in the world Monday through Saturday, I don't care, but as long as you're at church. There are people who are perfectly fine with that because it maintains a certain image, and to them, they are still privy to the insurance and inheritance of heaven.
It's the check in the box.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's their insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or the idea of that. But what happens is when you get to the rub of life, you don't have any grounding.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Your roots are like 3 centimeters in the ground.
If that.
And a good burst of wind, and you are gone. Or you're going to church because Big Mama said go to church, or because Mama said go to church. When things fall apart, you only have them to turn to. And so they're worn out.
Nope.
They're worn out. Year after year, they're worn out.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I grew up with family members. Sometimes for older people, the holidays were hellacious. Because everybody that wasn't listening on Sunday, because they did whatever they wanted to do throughout the week, they brought all of that dysfunction into the house on that Sunday or that holiday. So I'm always a cheerleader for people thinking on their own and understanding what they believe. And that for me, I'll say for me, that only came through education.
And you have to, and not be afraid of the unfurling and the falling apart that will inevitably happen.
Yeah.
It happens when you detach yourself from all of these ideals that have been imposed on you.
Mm-hmm. Bishop Yvette Flunder.
That's what's holding you together, the impositions. Ho!
Or bad holding together. Bishop Yvette Flunder talked about how her mother, strict Church of God in Christ, was hard on her, didn't have much to do with her, and she said, I have to figure out a way I can mend the relationship with my mother and I. And a lot of people don't know that Bishop Yvette Flunder is married to Shirley Miller. Yvette Flunder is well known for Thank You, Lord.
Yeah.
Shirley Miller is the lead
Thank
vocalist
you,
on
Lord.
Yeah, Shirley Miller's the vocalist on Oh Happy Day. 2 iconic songs. And they's married. And so she said and I've been married for years. She said her mother liked shopping. So she was strategic. She said, she went out, she said, Mom, let's go shopping. And she said they started talking because they were together. And she said she started to break down things like doctrine and ideology and things that man put in their head and stuff like that. And she said one day she was talking in the car and her mother said, shut up. Like, yeah, she said, Yvette, shut up. And she said she was just quiet and she kept going. She said, because I knew not to. Yeah. She said, I knew not to keep talking.
Yeah, because
it was going to be So she said they drove a bit and she said, Mom, why did you tell me to shut up? She said, because I didn't know what else to say. She said, because if what you're saying is true, everything that I believe is like on shaky ground. And I'm paraphrasing, so I think she said later on, her mama started wearing pants.
Oh!
Bring out the
She
pants.
said, "Hi,
The slacks.
Yo,
I'm a new woman."
and you know, I grew up one of my aunts, my great aunts, my older sister, rest her soul. She was apostolic for years. Like she wanted us fasting at 10 years old and seeking the Holy Ghost, and I'd be like, I'm Reba, I'm hungry.
Right? I want a sandwich.
Like, I'm trying to grow. I need sustenance.
Right, I am hungry. I don't think God wants me to just be
Alphabet
starving.
soup or something.
And so she left the apostolic doctrine. She went to a different church that was talking about the freedom, especially the freedom of women to practice their faith as they saw fit. And the first day we saw her in pants, makeup, and a light burgundy rinse across that bang, we said, Reba, are you okay? She said, yeah, baby, I'm just free.
Ooh.
You know, and we have to keep that work going. Like I was telling some friends of mine, I was just strict Pentecostal from about 10 years old to 25. That's when I left Pentecostalism. And to this day, I still have to say, child, that don't matter. But if I'm looking at a clip of something, you know how social media clips of church and stuff like that, or I'm looking at a video or service or something, if I see a woman in pants, my eye still says, oh, she got on pants. I don't make a like values-based decision on it anymore, but because I spent 15 years in that, I recognize that.
In that context, you're saying, if you see a video that's within that context, or are you talking about in life, walking down the street? In
a religious setting.
Yes,
but specifically like a black church.
Yes.
I would say, oh, she got on pants. Like case in point, that year at the Essence Festival, all the Clark sisters had on pants. Jackie, Dorinda, and Karen. I said, Lord. What would Maddie say? But then I said, that was just my recognition of like their tradition. I didn't care. I actually made a joke of it. I was like, Dorinda got on this Pentecostal catsuit.
Yes.
You know, it was like the catsuit and the pants.
Yes.
I said, live your life. You know, so
there was a because I follow Kiara on YouTube. Her I forget what her show was called. She had a show on there, and she was picking her mom up from the airport, I think. And Karen had on like a almost platinum, platinum blonde wig, and she was like, "I don't know. I feel like it's too. You think this is gonna be all right?" And I just thought that's so interesting. Number one, that was even an issue, but also to see this woman talking to her daughter, you know, about something. It was just a really interesting moment that stuck in my mind.
Because you are out. I tell people that there were two issues that I had with leaving the traditional Pentecostal church that I was brought up in. It was, firstly, I left a social construct. You hang out with my friends in the choir. You hang out with the people. Well, you know, we going to so-and-so church Saturday, so you plan that out. It's just a social structure and a social construct. But then I had to figure out, like, who exactly is God to me? How does, for me, it wasn't about other people's eyes, because I've always been different. I've always been taller than everybody. My mannerism and gender expression has always been different from the majority of the men that I've been around. So at a certain age, I was like, child, I don't care what these people think about me.
Yeah.
You know, but when I left and there was no pulpit, there was no praise and worship portion of it, what do I actually believe? And that's when I started searching and I started researching and I started actually looking into myself. What do I feel when I tune in to what my spirituality is? When I check into whatever entity it is that is above me or mankind, or what keep all these planets in balance, stuff like that. And a friend of mine, her name is Stacey Rose. She's a beautiful playwright and a writer. She was at an AA meeting. She's been clean for years. She was at an AA meeting some years back, and she said it got a little too churchy. And she said, I'm going to leave because this is not the God of my understanding. I had never heard those words applied to someone's faith system, the God of my understanding. And I told her, I said, you have literally blown me away in that one sentence. This is not the God of my understanding. And I started really focusing, and that was when I actually started saying, as I look back over my life. Oh,
I can see.
That's
love it, brother.
See how fast we can derail. But I said, oh my gosh, my entire life at my worst moments where I needed God or I needed some type of divine or supernatural intervention, the energy of the God of my understanding has always been a woman. It's never felt
masculine.
male.
Yeah.
Even scripturally, like God being called the many-breasted one. And God is not male nor female, God is a spirit. But the energy has always been, look, get your device. Get your device. The energy for me the energy for me has always been female. And that's when I started saying, okay, I have to really figure out what I want to do and who I want to be from a place of spirituality. And at the end of it, it's just, I want to be a good vessel. Yeah. You can have half of my slice of bacon. You know, if you're hungry and I got one slice, let's split it so that we both got a little something. You know, you can have half of my bacon.
Can you
know what I'm
have
saying?
something that's better for your heart?
No, but I only do like bacon like once a month. You can do bacon like once a month. And we also live in New York. Ain't none of this air good for our heart. It's all a compromise.
Yeah, so we already compromised. Go ahead and
We
eat the
just
bacon.
walking down the street, just sucking up the back of the bus.
It's like, eat the bacon.
It's fine.
But you know, like I just
Yeah.
I just want to be a good person. I don't want to do anybody wrong. I want to be a light, like scripture. I want to be a vessel of honor, and I didn't get to that place until I left like the fundamentalism of Pentecostalism, and I said, who do I want to be from one day to the next? All these rules, and also, I left it because I was like, I started looking around, and I said, women don't have any power.
Sure don't.
I said, but they always here, they always giving money, they always singing,
They're always
they're
feeding.
always feeding, they're always keeping the service going, they're always taking care of the children. I said,
And it's like, and what other construct does that remind us of?
The world.
The government, everything that's been
Yeah.
set up by white men.
Yes.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, it's we go back to what you were saying at the beginning. It comes from oppression. Even that, no matter how much you love Jesus within that system or you love the tradition, it still comes from that.
yeah.
And it's not until you get away from that that you actually start to grow. And it's when you ask why. And I love this. We've been doing that a lot too. Is like asking, why are we doing this? Why? What is the real reason? Like, forget tradition and all that stuff. What does it mean for us today?
Yeah.
And that's the problem with a lot of things is people don't want to ask that question about because it'd be a lot of work. The government needs to be completely reworked, but
And it's
and a lot
hard.
of things need to be. But I mean, I look at Broadway, I look at all of it, and it's because even like I was having not a struggle, but like even because I know you performed at the Annie Live concert, and there's also been this like Broadway for Black something else that's happening recently.
Broadway Black
Yeah,
or Broadway for Black?
Some Black coalition something.
Oh, the Broadway Advocacy Coalition.
Yeah, and then there's like they're doing a concert or something like that at some point or something like that for Black, for they're raising money for something. I don't know.
Okay.
Part of it I haven't paid attention to it because it's like, but it's still the same white folks getting the money at the end of the day. It's still the same people. Even with the Annie Live, back to what we talked about again. And I didn't watch it, but I'm assuming none of the stuff was really rewritten for Black people in terms of Taraji, rewritten for a actual Black Annie.
Right.
You know, and it's like that's why I was just like I don't because you know my god sister was at the party. That's how I knew you sang last night. But I was like, Manna was there, yeah. And I was just like, I don't really care to be there. I don't care to put on the clothes and get up in geesh and go out and be around these people right now.
Yes, geesh. I love it.
I don't. I really don't. I'd rather be sitting here on my couch playing video games and relaxing than to be out doing that.
Yeah, I like to honor the artist. I like to honor what they created. If they did not write that role for a person that looks like me or the person from my lived experience, like I don't have a problem. I honestly cannot stand all Black something
I don't
of
need
this.
all Black whole
all
don't.
Black
And
something
all Black
of this.
No, maybe write a show for Black people.
Yes,
instead.
or produce
One of the pieces.
thousands of pieces that have been written by Black artists. All of the music is written by Black artists. But again, it comes down to who has the money, who's producing, and who's also consuming it.
Yes.
And from the conversations I had with a lot of young Black artists that don't understand the machine, it's a conversation from arts management. It's a conversation from who is the demographic, who is buying tickets, who is coming to see it. So you want producers where the numbers don't lie, bottom line. You want producers to ignore their business mind and just have a heart.
Right.
And you want through what process of osmosis are they going to appreciate diverse art or the art of peoples of color, what is going to make them value that, especially if the butts in seats look a certain way? So it has to be. It can't be cold business. Like, I won't say any names, but there was a particular play that had like all black night. The price point was lowered.
Mm-hmm.
The producers did not recoup
Mm-hmm.
their investment on this show.
Mhm.
Now it's back, I think, for like 6 weeks, and I'm like, why was that their passion? What about that particular piece of art made them say, well, we ain't gonna get our money back. We want to do this night for the community.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know what was the impetus for that, because I worked in ticket sales for Broadway.com. Anytime a show slumped, we
That's
knew,
it.
well, they're about to be gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and certain houses, certain companies, Broadway, they will paper.
Yeah.
They'll give away because they don't want you and I come from Boise, come from wherever, and we pay $300 for a premium seat, and we look down and the row is empty.
Right.
That doesn't look good from a place of market. So a lot of young artists don't understand the business side of it.
Mm-hmm.
We are not the greatest, we're not the largest consumers, but we contribute to all these billions that are made. And that conversation or that level of empathy, where producers, they're not going to wake up one day and say, oh, I really value this, and now let me put millions of dollars into yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they can't value it, and they shouldn't be able to. They haven't experienced. They're not black. They're not, and it's.
Well, I will say about the Black Advocacy Coalition. Be sure about what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
where that is concerned. Like, I think that's also why it's important to engage with it, to engage
I don't
with
know if
some
it
of
was
the.
specifically the Black Advocacy
Yeah, so
Coalition, but it was. There's some. It's like Broadway for Black or something like that. There's a concert coming up that a bunch of Black people aren't even singing in. Like, it's a bunch of white folks.
Okay.
Or they did something like a while back. Broadway did something back, I think, around when George Floyd, and I was like, but no, none of the Black folks are singing. You got why is Bernadette Peters up here? I don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, and again, it is, if you don't, Dr. Joy Degree, one of my favorite human beings on the planet, one of my favorite human beings, she wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slavery Syndrome. And in one of her lectures that I have sent to literally 12 billion people, and I post it regularly,
Oh yeah.
she talked about, and she highlighted, her degrees are in like the humanities. She has a doctorate, 2 masters. She said, if you have not lived through something, you have a cerebral response to it. You can say, oh, that's unfortunate. Oh my gosh. But if you've lived through it, if you have been a part of the group of people that have suffered, or you look like the people that have suffered, and you know that this could possibly be your area of suffering, you have an emotional attachment to it. So you can't force people with a cerebral observation of something to really take it in as hard or as closely as you do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I will say is that people have degrees in composition. They can put all of these shows together. They can research. People are dramaturgs. But there still has to be an interest for you to look into something.
Yeah.
And I always say, why don't they just look at how much was taken from Black performers down through the years to establish the sound that is now the show tune? From like the sound of the cantor that went into Yiddish theater that is now, Black folk was all up and through there. And also using the Black vehicle.
Yeah.
How many songs did Ethel Waters make world famous? So even if you don't have that emotional connection, just say, oh my God, their art and their talent and their ability has lined my pockets for years.
Let's not even start talking about Elvis.
Yeah. One of my favorite documentaries, 20 Feet from Stardom, where rock and roll, they wanted the sound of the Black church. And that's what Mary Clayton said. She said they wanted the church, and that's what we brought to the music. And we have all of the rock stars talking about the background singers that made their music so amazing.
I mean, you look at like there's the Beatles documentary that just came out, or they just did. It's like 3 parts of it, and it's a whole long movie. It's on Disney Plus. But I didn't realize. So you might know who Billy Preston.
Yeah.
He plays on that album.
Yeah.
On their last album, like all of the good stuff on Let It Be and all those songs. That's all Billy Preston. Yeah. He just showed up, and I was like, and I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
and I love all that music, and I'm like, that's where my connection is.
Oh yeah, just like there's a clip if you've never seen it. Bless you, I'm gonna send it to you if you've never seen it. There's a clip where Little Richard is inducting posthumously Otis Redding into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and so he comes out and he's singing and he's literally wide open. It's amazing. At one point he said, "I feel so unnecessary." Oh, I feel so good. I feel so unnecessary. I had never heard it phrased that way because there have been times in my life where I felt unnecessary. I just didn't have the right words.
But what does he mean by that?
He knew he was carrying on, and he knew he was saying a lot of stuff that was probably pushing in white folks the wrong way because he said everybody was with me, and they were. The Beatles toured with Little Richard before they were the Beatles. Mick Jagger was sitting in the audience. He said, Mick don't talk about it, but he was with me too. He said Mick Jagger was living out of a truck. He said Mick don't talk about it. Times was hard, wasn't it, Mick? He said he was sleeping in Bo Diddley's room in the floor because they didn't have no more beds in the hotel room. He said he was in Bo Diddley's room.
Sir,
sleeping on the floor. He said, because my room was crowded.
Oh,
so I mean, it was like pepper with comedy and stuff like that, and
of
humor.
Course.
But he always I understand what he said. Y'all ain't gave me nothing. All these white folk recorded my music, Morocco, and he said I would record songs so fast. He said I knew white artists couldn't go behind it and like steal the music.
Yeah.
He said I would just record it faster and faster and faster. So just looking at all of things, you have to understand. I tell people, here's the triptych. Know history. That allows you to contextualize the present. You know what's going on around you. You're not so worn out and exhausted. The third part is you understand what you need to do to keep going. Like the Rittenhouse verdict. I posted on Facebook. I was like, if you're surprised, then you're exhausting. if you are surprised by that ruling, then you don't know like the history of what's going on around you.
Yeah, I did not. It was not necessary for me to watch it.
No. Yeah, just like Mamie Till talked about after they announced their verdict after the very short trial. She said I wasn't expecting anything different. She said this whole trial was a farce.
Yeah,
so that's why I love history, and I speak. One of my professors, my theater history professor, she said, you have to look at things through the eye of history. She said, you can't look at what people did back then through the eye of today. And I was in a back and forth with some people about casting with certain things. And a lot of people get so lost in celebrity and the shine of Hollywood and all that they don't understand like context. And we were talking, and I said, I loved him to death, still love his work. But the casting, from a place of history and understanding how and why Thurgood Marshall moved as he did, the casting of Chadwick Boseman was problematic. Because Thurgood Marshall was palatable because he was lighter.
Yeah.
My family name is McLaughlin, so I understand my mother and my grandmother and her siblings much. I call them translucent. They were able to get away with being a little more mouthy sometimes because they were lighter. Some of the jobs that they got, the neighborhoods you lived in, because of colorism. So I tell people all the time, if you have enough information that helps you understand how things got to where they are. There's an amazing documentary called The Men Who Built America. It's about Rockefeller, Ford, Carnegie, all of them. And you understand how America became to be what it is through industrialization. And then you also understand where lobbyism got started. They had to pull their money together to, who was the president that was assassinated? McKinley? No, McKinley.
No.
McKinley. I think it's McKinley. they pulled all of the employees. But you all have to vote this way because they're trying to take all of our jobs. So the people were funneled into voting a certain way, and they put money in to politicians. So that's where we started seeing the history of lobbyism. And you understand today why certain entities are still huge. We're now looking at the NRA and what are we going to do about guns? But they're getting all this coin.
Right.
People are filling their pockets, so they have to vote according to that coin when they go in, to making policy. So it's I think it's super beneficial to look at things through the eye of history and understand what happened in the 15th century, what happened in the 16th, so that and you're kind of more familiar with how and why things got to how they are.
When we talked about this, about knowing, like, part of the reason why some people don't feel connected to, say, their African ancestors as much is because nobody's told that story really from their point of view.
Yeah, and from the place of like the victor, or from the place of
of showing them surviving. It's always we already slaves.
Yeah. And again, that's what Dr. Joy DeGree talks about. She said, and she starts the lecture and she gives the symptoms of PTSD. You don't see a future for yourself. It's hard to go to sleep or stay asleep. Those things. When you've dealt with a certain narrative, that's just how you see yourself. Your brain repeats those things. My African American history teacher in high school, 11th grade, she showed us a picture. I don't know if the young man was South African. No, they weren't West African. But in their culture, it was a mark of beauty for them to remove their big teeth. So when they smiled, that was beautiful to their culture. And she told us, she said, this is a beautiful young man from so-and-so. And we was like, beautiful. Where are his front teeth? We were going in. She said, this is their cultures, like, this is their type of body modification. She said, we all modify our bodies based upon the culture that we come up in. She said, if you don't see this young man as beautiful, you're in the right classroom to be reprogrammed. So she took us and that's when I first started getting education about, like, I always grew up around like West African dancing because I grew up in a black neighborhood in black schools. So there were like dance troupes and stuff. And she started to break down that the cover of the djembe is a goat hide because many of the people in the area, they herd goats, and the goat hide is conducive to hot or humid weather. It doesn't tear as easily. So I was like, oh, that's why and you start to put it together. Oh, I'm not just someone that descended from people in boats and chains. There was one of my favorite series on Amazon Prime is Great African Civilizations. So when people don't have information and there's a lot of oppression, they make their choices out of that.
Yeah.
When I lived in Bed-Stuy, I was like, okay, when I first moved here, like 2013. I moved to 22. I was living in Bed-Stuy in like 2013. I was on the side that was kind of getting pushed up, but then I would be like, why are there no receptacles on the corner? So where will oppressed people throw their soda bottle if there's no receptacle that the city doesn't come and empty X amount of times a day? Then when I was walking through the Upper West Side, there was a man in a city uniform. He had a long metal thing, and it was like a flat piece of metal on the end, like a big razor. And he was getting up gum off the sidewalk. I said, so they don't have trash cans in Bed-Stuy, East New York, the Bronx, areas of Washington Heights, but they got a budget for him to get gum off the street. And so when growing up, it was, for me, it was always just blind faith. In my church growing up, Pentecostalism, 16, 17, there was no conversation about, now you know when you're 18, you got to register to vote. I got that in high school, at school. It was pray for the president, but it was pray for the president. But don't you dare go down there trying to be involved in policy making. Don't go down there marching. You keep your job and pay your tithes, and God will work it all out.
You know what that comes from? 400 years of slavery.
Of oppression. and I ask people, and a lot of my backlash comes because I say I'm a spiritual person, and I come out of the black church, but I'm also gay. And people always, Here they come with the Levitical scriptures, and here they come with the salient scripture that everybody throw around. They can't even find it in the book. I asked this woman one time. I said, baby, do you know anything about what happened at Nicaea? Have you ever looked at any information on the Apocrypha? I said, do you know how Henry VIII broke away from Catholicism and started the Holy Church in England so he could marry Anne Boleyn because the Pope would give him no divorce? I said, if you don't have any of those answers, or if you haven't thought about any of those things, you just got to shut up to me. And don't pull yourself up to this table till you done took a 100 level history class. Go on down to the community college to talk about stuff. And I've asked so many religious women who give me a hard time about my sexuality. I tell them, have you ever thought about how these books don't particularly give you any power outside of your connection to a man and you being subject to that man? A friend of mine just got married a couple weekends ago. I was home before Thanksgiving.
Oh.
She got married on the 20th, and I stayed there through Thanksgiving. And a mutual friend, he was presiding over the nuptials.
Yes.
And he said, he was reading the scripture, women, submit yourself to your husband. Now, this woman is wonderfully Afrocentric, wonderfully empowered, a doctorate in theater education. She's over the theater program at Central. He was reading that, and I was like, I don't think they had a conversation about him saying that. Because she was like looking at her husband, and he got to read woman be subject to, and her face said, he said, well, let me fix it. He said, now, husband, love your wife and submit yourself to her. But we all know through just life, patriarchy is strong. And I tell people, if you don't have certain questions, if you haven't started wondering why certain things, like, we can't talk.
We were at a wedding over the summer that was just particularly cringy the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, for so many reasons.
Like, just shovel up some earth and just cover me up. I don't want.
Because of the language,
Well, it goes back to, and I feel I don't necessarily fight that here, but like, again, why do we have to wrap it up in these niceties or this? Because like we were saying, like with our Christmas Eve service, we're making it a community service because we're not gonna have an orchestra, we're not gonna have a choir, we're not gonna have all that. If y'all want that, bring your instruments and come sing.
Yeah.
Why can't you just say that?
Yeah.
Why do I have to say, instead of this informal thing, we're going to have this service of worship and celebrate the birth of the almighty Jesus Christ? Why do we? Nobody wants to hear that anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Gen Z is being very strict about, like, no, we don't care about that. Sorry.
Yeah, because the I'm learning from the Gen Zers. I'm paying attention to a lot of things, just like these Gen Zers and millennials and stuff like that. They're not going to work if they're not happy. They're not going to work under all different types of approach because they know, many of them know, I have this skill set. I'm marketable. I can earn a job. I can do, or I can make less money and be at peace. And I grew up with, baby, you better work that job.
Good government job.
Yeah, you got benefits.
What?
Yeah, you got health care? Dental? Ooh.
And vision. So I grew up from like, and you just work with a job. And I don't know what my generation's called, forgive me, but it's a generation of people like, I'm 42, so I grew up before the internet. My first computer was an IBM with the big floppy disk and the circle in the middle.
Yes.
And you slide and close the door and the green letters on. It was like huge. And so I remember dial up, all of that. I remember a payphone on the corner, calling, collect, and stuff like that. So I'm learning, and I've kind of been this way for quite some time, but I have the more vocabulary for it now. I'm not nice. I'm kind. Like, babe, if you hungry, yeah, I get something. But I'm not gonna be nice and suffer your energy or whatever your situation is. Like, nice is it's raining outside. Be careful. Kind is, oh, child, I'm staying on my lunch break. Take my umbrella. It's raining out there. So I'm not nice anymore because niceness had me under Pentecostalism being depressed, just woe out, bleeding, broke down.
Well, it doesn't help anybody to just be nice. Like I think about like my favorite. When I think about niceness, there's one line from Into the Woods from The Last Midnight that comes. You're so nice. You're not good. You're not bad. You're just nice.
The witch.
And it's like that's what I think about a lot of times with nice. It's like, be good or bad. It's like you just this middle stuff that's like you're not either or. Like, and a lot of people like that on issues.
And what I love about sometimes writing and his lyrical content, she later says, did she say, I'm not good, I'm not nice? She said, I'm the world. I'm the witch. I'm the world.
Yes.
Because she was like, y'all sitting around here doing all this stuff. She was like, give me the boy.
We're living in reality.
Yes, the giant is coming. His feet are big.
We've got to lower this debt ceiling.
Yes.
We've got to do this now.
Give me the boy. And a lot of people get so caught up in the amazingness that is the music and all that they don't listen to all of those situations. The slotted spoon doesn't hold much soup.
But it can.
Yeah.
The potato.
Yes. You know, it's like, and whenever I'm coaching or working with singers and stuff like that, like a friend of mine was getting ready for an audition, and he's a beautifully trained dancer, but not a trained vocalist. So he was like really nervous, and I was like, warm up, get your deep breath. And as he was singing it, I said, wait, stop. I said, where are you?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, what? I said, no, as you're performing, where are you? Who are you singing to? Do you see a world as you're performing, or do you just see notes? And is this just note value? He's like, wow, I haven't been asked that. So we had to stop and make that, what do you see, and what do you want to accomplish? And even with his lack of training, it was so much better as he ran it with an understanding of who he was. What am I doing? What am I, sending out to the world?
Because it became real in the body.
That, and if we forget about the play, like when we play, we imagine when we're children and we're playing to adults. It's like, oh, look at them playing. As children, we are in. August told me, I can't remember what we were talking about. She was like, Mommy, I'm a bird. And I was like, okay, well, Augie, come on in. And she said, no, Mommy, I'm a bird. I was like, okay, but August, she said, Mom, I'm a bird. I said, okay. Bird, will you come and take your dish into the kitchen? She was like, okay. Because it's so real.
Yeah, that like our mutual friend's daughter, Nia, she was playing grocery store one time, and she was like, I want oranges, and I was like, wait, Nia, we don't have any. Like, she had the little plastic fruit, and she was making up for what wasn't there. And I said, wait, Nia, I don't see any oranges. She said, it's like it was an aside. She was like, it's pretend.
Yes. Oh, August tell me that all the time.
Yes. She was like, pull yourself. It's pretend. If you don't see an orange, just go with it. And going back to like by acting training, like acting one, we learned about mimetic instinct. That is the child's desire to recreate the things that they see around them. Our brains operate on what we take in, and your imagination, your dreams, it's like a collection of what your brain has taken in. That's why kids, like when I was a kid, I could recreate the entire church service. I could mimic my bus driver. I could mimic my teachers. Like the vocal quality. I used to love to hear old people sing. Just another day at the light. That was amazing to me that their voices could do that. I was like, my voice doesn't do that. My voice sounds like this. So kids want to recreate the things around them, and it's like, I love teaching.
Yeah,
I teach for a charter school, and I teach pre-K through 7th grade, and I look at the different grade levels, and the older the kid, the less adventurous they are.
Yes.
That literally took me out the other day. I was like, my 6th and 7th graders, I have to do so much work to get them to see the value of just singing, whether it sounds good or not. Just sing something out, But my little pre-K, first, second grade. I have to teach them. Okay, inside voice.
Yeah.
Like let's whisper. And let's raise the volume so they understand that they don't have to yell and scream.
Yeah.
They are ready for anything.
Yeah.
Like excited. And that's how I generally been for the most part. That's why I like kids. I will roll in the floor with kids.
Oh yeah.
I will run around. Like I don't ever want to lose that kind of joy and that connection. And I think artists have a different way of finding joy, whether we have money or not. We have a different way of finding joy, whether we have a particular success or not, because we can sit at the piano, we can sit with ourselves, we can create. And, Bongi from Lion King, we were working on a show with Soho Rep many years ago. He said, you have to understand how people are enamored and what artists can do.
And we think that is so true, because we often, it's so second nature that we're like, okay.
Yeah. And my mother didn't understand me until, and I didn't go to college. I was 25. My mother didn't understand me her whole 25-year-old son. She didn't really understand me completely until she saw, like, my theater department, like my theater majors, my professors and stuff like that. She was like, I have never seen so many people that are like my son. Y'all loud. You all over the place. You can't sit down. You analyze everything. She said, this really helps me understand my child. And for me, I've always been enamored at people who do things that I don't do. I don't play a piano. I'm not like a techie person. I'm like, now, it's a kilobyte. And it's a gigabyte.
And it's megabytes.
No, let me tell you.
Tetrabytes?
Let me tell you. And I laugh at myself all the time. That's how I just stay grounded. I done called the people at Spectrum. I said, it's something wrong with this box.
Oh, God.
Y'all got to send somebody out here to get this box. And they already suspect. But the man said, oh, no. This is your HDMI cable.
Oh, no.
You got to run that from the back of the box
to the TV.
To the side of the TV. I'm looking for the throwback, that little cord.
The coaxial cable.
Yeah, they go to the camera. I was like, I know how to plug it in. I read the directions. He said, it was still in the plastic. He said, man. And he was hilarious. We was laughing back. He was like, now you got to unwrap this plastic. He said it. I said, sir, I thank you.
Thank you. I thank you. I
want
thank
you.
you.
To have a good day. I said,
you're going to be blessed.
I said, I'm sorry you had to come around here. I said, but I'm glad you got a job.
Yeah.
My lack keeps you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I like talking to people. I don't want to be on the automated system. When I call somebody in customer service, I'm like, representative.
Representative.
000 because I want to talk to a person, because I want that clarity, but I also want people to have jobs.
Yeah.
So for me, the world, I think my balance is, even among like all the stuff that we're dealing with today, looking at one of the quotes of Anne Frank, I'm paraphrasing. She said, I really do believe that there are still good people in the world. And she wrote this from her experience. A little girl seeing Nazi Germany and Nazi Europe and hiding in the attic of a house, not being able to be free. 2 years.
2 years.
And we and not to trivialize what we went through with COVID, but we are adults and we were struggling with being quarantined, being in the house. But this little girl, and understanding how kids have to have exercise.
Yeah.
Or like all that energy, they have to. If August don't get no recess.
Oh my God.
If she can't burn off that energy, and it's 8:30.
Oh my God.
Or if she get that nap too late in the day.
Oh my God.
If she's napping at 6:30.
Stop.
Oh, you're gonna be. So I love and appreciate like this. Like,
Don't have a nervous breakdown. It's okay. It's not real. It's imagination.
I love and appreciate like the small joys in life. I love the fact that Paul said we are different members of one body, like fitly joined together. You know what I'm saying? I don't be touching microphones and unplugging stuff, because I don't know how to fix stuff. I mean, I know this plugs into the bottom and stuff, and I'm not this person, boop, 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 hitting the mic and stuff like that. I'm not a technician. I let people do their job.
Yeah.
And I don't really speak in areas that aren't like my expertise. Like, I tell people all the time, we talk about art. We will like discuss and debate things that we like or things. I'm not telling them people down at the H&R Block how to match them buttons when they doing my taxes. I'm not telling them how to add this line and that line and so.
And there are some people, not gonna say the names, but there's some people who will go in and think they know more. Will go in and think they know more and demand to see the manager as if they know more.
Yes, I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna tell the conductor, the train driver on the A train as I'm going. As I'm going uptown, I'm not gonna knock on that door. Honey, what can you drive this? Can you? I'm not gonna do that.
And you know that there are people who wait to do that.
Oh
yeah, yeah. And those are the people who literally just have no peace.
They don't have it. Yeah, they don't have.
I told to say I work one time. I said your adrenal glands must be at 0 every night when you lay down, because you have a cause and a fight for everything. I done got old. It's some stuff I'm just like, okay. That's why, like you said, there are certain spaces I don't care to be in. I will sit at home and cook me something and have a wonderful time to myself. One thing that COVID taught me was, down through these 42 years, I've worked on myself and I've made some stupid mistakes, but I've given it a good effort to be okay with me.
Yeah.
So
it takes a lot to be okay with you, with yourself.
And it's a work that continues from day to day. I've been like, Darell, why did you do that? That was dumb. I would talk to myself,
Oh yeah.
Well, some people, something that's popped in my head too is like, sometimes maybe it's a lifelong journey because that's part of what this life is supposed to be for. Maybe you don't know what you're doing after this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe this journey is. Maybe, I feel like a lot of people want that love of self, that love of that. They want that immediately. They want to do a little work and say, okay, no, I'm perfect. I love myself. It's like, no, it's going to take your entire life.
Because, again, I'm not the person I was 5 years ago. I'm not the person I was 10 years ago. I'm real nice and kind now. But I used to go in on people.
I know, you've told me that.
If you said one thing to me that was sideways, what? What was said? Oh, it was.
Thank God for deliverance.
Yes. And we were going to settle it right there if you were 8 or 80.
Oh, God.
Because I wasn't happy with myself. I was mad at circumstances. I was upset with being bossed around and told what to do. Like, there was a certain period when I was a teenager, I didn't want to sing. Because if I wasn't singing, I was invisible. Nobody cared. It's like when I was in high school, I don't think people actually registered that when I would be, those of us that were different kids in chorus or the nerds or the whatever, they couldn't tease us when we were performing. Yeah. And I know they didn't even have the vocabulary for it, but when we were singing, they were quiet and they just watched. And whether or not they booed at the end, they were quiet while we were singing. So for a while I was like, dog. So this, like, nobody cares that I like National Geographic. Nobody cares that I want to go see the Taj Mahal. Nobody cares that, like, when I was like 15, I wanted to like run away from home and I wanted to be in Boys Choir of Harlem because I saw a Christmas concert where Kathleen Battle was singing with the Boys Choir of Harlem, and I told my mother what Theo said on the concert. So she said, "Where you gonna live?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "What you gonna eat?" I said, "Cereal and bologna." I was determined. There was always something in my head about other places.
Yeah.
The A&E channel used to have Sunday breakfast with the arts,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be so amazed. I would be like late getting ready for school because getting ready for church. That had all my attention, like a Philharmonic or a jazz concert, or like it was just arts all over the world, and I would literally be like entranced watching it. And my brother never really understood me. He never like really bothered me, but he would be like, one day I was listening to Ella Fitzgerald. He's like, "What in the world are you listening to?" I said, "One of the most famous women in the world." I was like, "You don't know anything." Like I was like, "You don't know anything." I was like yelling at my brother because he didn't really understand who Ella Fitzgerald was.
Yeah.
It wasn't his fault. That wasn't his inspiration. I didn't know who like all the basketball and football players were. I still don't to this day.
It's
I'll be watching football. I'll be like, yes, Patrick Ewing. Go William Refrigerator Perry. I just be calling out Randall Cunningham. Let's go. I just call out people that I remember from back in the day.
It's okay.
Leave me alone.
Look, they don't know our names.
No.
They definitely don't.
But before, because we'll get off on other things. Before we talk all these folks that we ain't even talked about the prayer or any of that, but it's already been too long. It's too late. Let's wrap up with a little bit of. You want to give them a little bit of take them to the hour?
Well, can you read the prayer? You don't want to read it?
Sure, but it's
give 'em a
already
little taste.
6:30.
Oh.
It got good to it.
Take me to.
So I'll read the prayer. So the prayer is, Blessed Savior, be born in us anew. Shine your healing love in the darkness that surrounds us, so that we might be reassured of your abiding presence and become signs of hope and light for others.
Yeah.
That's what
I
we've
like
been
it.
talking about.
Yeah.
That is what we're good at.
And Frank, the quote of the week is, look at how a single candle can both defy and define the darkness.
Love it. Hit it. Dum, bum,
What
dum,
up,
dum.
ting? Well, they give their houses in preparation for the king, and they line the sidewalks with every sort of shiny thing. They will be surprised when they hear him say, take me to the alley, take me to the afflicted one, take me to the lonely ones that somehow lost their way. Let them hear me say, I am your friend. Come to my table, rest here in my garden. You will have a pardon. Take me to the alley, take me to the afflicted ones. Join. Take me to the lonely ones that somehow lost their way. Let them hear me say, I am your friend. Come here to my table, rest here in my garden. You will have a pardon. Let them hear me say, I am your friend. Come here to my table, rest here in my garden. You will have a pardon. You will have a pardon. You will have a pardon.
we'd like to thank you all for coming and joining us. We did go a little bit longer, but it's fine. It's part of what the conversation is for.
Yeah.
And I encourage you in your life, start asking why. Why am I doing this? Why am I here? And maybe we can all get to that place of growth.
Yeah.
You know?
One day at a time.
All righty. Well, we'll be here next week with Emily Kay is coming back. So make sure you come to join us next week. See you then.